London, the 19th century. A city of light and shadows, of wealth piled high beside desperate hunger. One man looked straight into those shadows and gave them language. This is Charles Dickens. By the time he died in 1870, Charles Dickens was Britain's most famous writer. He was a household name, a performer who read to vast crowds and a moral voice who forced a nation to look at itself. His novels made the poor visible and the small complaints of ordinary people impossible to ignore. But to understand why his words struck so deep, we have to meet the boy who remembered hunger. Charles John Hotham Dickens was born February 7, 1812. He grew up in a large family where imagings and storytelling were daily. His father, John Dickens, worked for the Navy Pay Office. They were gentle but precarious. When Charles was 12, his father was imprisoned for debt in Marshalsea. The household crumbled. Charles was sent to Warren's blacking factory to paste labels on tins of shoe polish. He worked long hours for little pay. The humiliation and the smell of glue and smoke lodged in him like a permanent scar. That childhood of displacement and shame would return again and again in his characters. Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, Pip, children and adults who seek rescue and dignity. After the factory, Dickens became a law clerk and then a parliamentary reporter. Reporting taught him rhythm, dialogue, and an ear for speech. He walked the city constantly, cataloguing faces, accents, and scenes that would populate his pages. In the 1830s, he began publishing sketches under the pseudonym Boz. Then, in 1836, the Pickwick papers made him a sensation almost overnight. But fame, for Dickens, was an engine to reach people. He serialized novels so ordinary readers could afford to follow them. Literature became a public theater. Dickens' fiction was not escapism, it was social indictment. Oliver Twist forced public gaze on the workhouse. Nicholas Nickleby attacked the cruelty of private schools. A Christmas Carol transformed charity from private sentiment into public ritual. Dickens wrote to shame and to inspire. Serialization shaped Dickens' craft. Chapters had to end with hooks. Emotions heightened. Readers held in suspense week by week. This not only fed commerce, it created a culture where novels were discussed in parlors and factories alike, where stories could nudge public opinion. Dickens married Catherine Hogarth in 1836. They had 10 children. Publicly, they represented the ideal Victorian family. Privately, the marriage unraveled. After 2 decades, Dickens separated from Catherine. Scandal followed. He entered a private relationship with actress Ellen Ternan, young and discreet, and kept much of that life away from public eyes. He loved fiercely and imperfectly. He was drawn to performers, to theatrical life, yet deeply judgmental. That tension, public preacher, private sinner, complicated how we read his sympathy. In his later years, Dickens became a performer. His public readings were theatrical events. He embodied characters. He raised his voice and made audiences weep and laugh on cue. Those readings were enormously lucrative and brought him closer to his readers than any bookshop could. In June 1865, Dickens survived a terrible rail crash at Staplehurst. He pulled survivors from wreckage and sat with the dying. The trauma of that night haunted him. For the remainder of his life, he battled insomnia, trembling hands, and recurring nightmares, though he rarely spoke of the experience. Dickens' later works contain his richest cunning and deepest contradictions. Bleak House cured legal stagnation. Little Dorrit investigated the prison of death. Great Expectations, proud ambition, shame, and the cost of becoming what we desire. He remained a moral writer, but one who understood complexity. People are neither wholly good nor wholly wicked. Even as he chastised society, he recognized how society shaped the individual. He had no facile solutions, only fierce hopes that empathy might alter outcomes. On June 9, 1870, Charles Dickens suffered a fatal stroke at Gart Hill Place. He was 60. The nation mourned. He was buried in Poets' Corner, Westminster Abbey. Obituaries called him unrivaled in imagination. Today, Dickens is adapted and argued over. He is loved for his warmth and criticized for caricature and sentiment. But his central lesson endures. Empathy matters. He taught readers to notice the small and to refuse indifference. He wrote characters we still recognize because he understood what we too often forget, that every life, however obscure, carries a story worth hearing.